So Destructive Daruma Karma Cannon is a normal trap card that got released in Darkwing Blast, and even though it is seeing play in Labyrinth decks, it's not really seeing much play outside of that, and I really wonder why. I honestly believe that this card is far better than what people give it credit for and could be played generically. So let's take a deeper look into it, shall we? So first of all, it's a non-once per turn normal trap card that is pretty much like a Book of Eclipse-esque card that doesn't make your opponent draw, obviously, and it can out unaffected by card effect monsters. So I have explained this in the past, but the reason for that is because you're making your opponents send the monsters they control face up to the graveyard, so you're sending them indirectly by game mechanics and not by card effects. So it takes care of a bunch of Towers-esque monsters like a Rival Cyberus or Expert Noir and Link monsters. And of course, since it is a Book of Eclipse-esque card, it's obviously really good against Kashtira. And being a normal trap card means that it's an absolute joke to have access to and recycle in the Labyrinth deck. But it's also searchable by Trap Trick and especially Triple Tactic Thrust. And I want to say that might be one of the best applications for this card. So in a Kashtira heavy format, which we're still in right now, this card could actually be your ticket winning through something like a Shifter or a Droll against you. So if Kashtira hits you with either of these hand traps, you just go Triple Tactic Thrust to get the Karma Cannon, and that basically gives you a full turn. And this also matters if you have a bad Kashtira matchup or if you just want a card that covers a lot of matchups. Because again, Karma Cannon is really good generically, and it's also again really good at dealing with cards that you might not usually have an out for. Because I mean, unless you have like specific cards to out Expert Noir, it might be a little rough. But if you play something like Karma Cannon, not only can you easily access it, but also you don't really have to commit to Kaijus. And the Evil Twin Runic Sprite is also a deck that loses pretty hard to this deck because they play a lot of Link monsters. And again, when the Karma Cannon resolves, every monster that is still face up on the field has to go to the graveyard again by game mechanics. Oh, and that also means that if a monster has an effect when it's sent to the graveyard by a card effect, it will not trigger. And Karma Cannon is also another one of those cards that's really good against the Vanquished Soul deck because they have a Link 1 monster that's always going to be sent to the grave. But also another really insane thing is that even if their Caesar is unaffected by card effects, it doesn't matter, and they're going to lose every single threats on their board when you use Karma Cannon, or at least if you time it correctly. Now, against fusion-based strategies like Despia or the Chimera deck, it's not really good, but it's also not too bad. If they're greedy and they summon way too many monsters and then go for like battle phase with like 5 attack position monsters that were summoned this turn, well, the Karma Cannon could actually destroy them. You're not really making your opponent lose any cards, but you are making your opponent lose momentum in the game, and that's arguably even more important than card advantage sometimes. In a really fast format like this one, I'd rather have like one really strong relevant monster face up on the field than have like 5 irrelevant face down monsters. Because I mean, like a Zeus can take care of any amount of face down monsters, but sometimes one card is enough to make you lose. And Karma Cannon takes care of everything at once, and you really want that if you're under pressure. I mean, I don't know if you remember the Worlds Playoff match with Din Kabui, but he essentially used the Karma Cannon against the Despia deck, and he was able to mount a crazy comeback with it. That just shows how much potential this card has. Oh, and by the way, this card can also apply crazy psychological pressure on your opponent. If you're playing this card in a non-trap deck, nobody's gonna see it coming, and when they see it, they're going to start overthinking of their moves. They might start playing around the card that you don't necessarily have because it's just a one of, or if you have more copies, they're not really gonna be approaching this correctly. And you can really capitalize off of your opponent misplaying like that. And I want to say this is the beauty with traps in general. People always expect trap cards in trap decks, obviously, so they bring in the board breakers for game 2 and 3, but against non-trap decks, they don't really see anything coming, so their reflex isn't gonna be to, you know, play around Destructive Daruma Karma Cannon. And again, the incredible flexibility and easy to access aspect of this card is definitely a green flag for it. I'd recommend testing at least one copy of this card in your main deck if you're playing Triple Tactic Thrust, and potentially consider side decking this card at more copies if you really like it. But nothing forces you to play this card at all, I'm just offering options. It's good against Kashtira, good against a bunch of decks, good in trap decks obviously, and good in non-trap decks if, again, you lose to Shifter and you want to play a card like Triple Tactic Thrust. Anyways, that's all for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know your thoughts about this card in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys very soon. Peace.